This is the Scarcity Studios YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. And our sponsors at Alpha Claims and Hire Birmingham, the leading and best accident management company. Get a replacement car anywhere in 1 hour. I really appreciate you joining me again today, and this story is about Encrochat, and the story comes from West London and involves an East London gang that work together in order to try to build a bigger empire involving drugs. Encrochat revealed all the details that this gang had discussed with each other, and today 4 members of the group have been jailed and police recovered £980,000 in the operation, as well as 11 kilos of cocaine from raids that were associated. On the 18th of March, all 4 pled guilty to conspiracy to supply Class A drugs at the same court. The trial heard that O'Brien, Norris, Breagan and Whitbread acted as members of a sophisticated organised criminal network that operated through the use of encrypted Encrochat devices. The conspiracy was split into 2 parts. The West London group was made up of O'Brien, Norris, Breagan, Whitbread and a further male who has never been identified. And the East London group was made up of 3 other men. Matthew O'Brien, 32 years old from Ruislip, was sentenced to 15 years and 9 months. George Norris from Ealing was sentenced to 12 years and 8 months. Mark Breagan from Ealing was sentenced to 10 years and 4 months. And Alfie Whitbread from Ealing was sentenced to 8 years and 10 months. Jack Lee, 33 years old, was sentenced to 16 years. Gareth Morris from Plumstead was jailed for 7 years. Lee Willetts was sentenced to 7 years as well. Initially, the conspiracy started when the West London group started supplying cocaine to the East London group, and O'Brien, Norris, Breagan and Whitbread would act as associates to distribute the multiple kilos. This was occurring on a weekly basis, and the West London group was supplying 10 kilos of cocaine every week to the East London operation, and they would then go on to sell it in Kent and the southeast of England. Over time, the 2 groups formed a partnership and they became closer and closer, and they would discuss the importation of up to 100 kilos and share information on the importations. During the course of the investigation, police intercepted and acted upon a number of the group and their co-conspirators. On the 13th of May 2020, Gareth Morris was observed supplying bags of money to Alfie Whitbread. When they stopped them, they found £232,000 inside the bags. On the 15th of March 2020, Lee Willetts was observed leaving his home in Greenford when he was stopped by police in West Sussex while he was en route to Kent to fulfill his customer base that he had grew there. He was found in possession of 11 kilos of cocaine, ranging from 80 to 87% purity. On the 4th of August 2020, O'Brien, Norris, Breagan and Whitbread were arrested at their addresses and charged with conspiracy to supply Class A drugs. They also seized an Encrochat device from Breagan's address and also 50 grand in cash. Specialist crime detectives were able to download material from the Encrochat devices that dated back to March and June 2020, and this showed daily chats between the group and also the conspiracy and also the severity of it. The material consisted of photographs of stamps of cocaine, large quantities of cash and also messages arranging the distribution and money laundering. Detective Inspector Stephen Matteson from the Metropolitan Crime North Unit said, "These convictions show how seriously the Metropolitan Police takes investigating cases like this. There is no doubt that the content of the messages from the Encrochat devices demonstrated the scale of the operation that was being ran by this group, and also the significant sentences reflect this." And this is the main problem that you'll find when you're making a lot of money selling drugs, is how on earth do you get rid of it? How do you make it clean? Because you can't just go up to somebody, spend £100,000 and have no explanation for where it comes from. And in this other story from Manchester, 2 men were convicted and evidence was used based on their money laundering. The duo was jailed this week for 15 years following a covert operation, and also Encrochat revealed the messages and the details of their money laundering. The investigation convicted Ramez Caffrey and John Cheam, who were both using the Encrochat devices to supply Class A and B drugs. Greater Manchester Police were told that Ramez was Frost Jacket, and that was his name that he used on Encrochat. And through his profile, both of the men would regularly be in touch with each other, sourcing drugs and also buying them. Analysis of the messages that dated back from April and June 2020 showed that Frost Jacket was trying to source cocaine in early April, and he was struggling to do so due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the government restrictions. In the months that followed, the men messaged each other a lot, and there was talking about half a kilo sales of drugs and also the street value of what the drugs would be worth. They sold 61 kilos of amphetamines and also 44 kilos of cannabis that the police estimated to be worth $264,000 for the cannabis and £100,000 for the amphetamine. The men would offer either cash or vehicles in exchange for the drugs, and on one occasion the men arranged to meet in Moston where they exchanged a 20-plate Mercedes for 18 kilos of amphetamine. In an attempt to launder the money from the large-scale operation, the men were discussing regularly how they would encourage members of their family to spend the money and also obtain things in their name. During the operation and the surveillance, they also discovered the men had robbed a cannabis farm that was in the Oldham area from a rival crime group in May 2020. Other Encrochat messages showed them discussing conversations with people that were overseas and discussing the importation of drugs from Denmark and also Belgium. They said they would fill a space with 100k's worth of drugs and the driver would be none the wiser. They was arrested in March 2021 and both of them were found guilty at Manchester Crown Court on the 1st of March this month. Moston was jailed for 11 years and 3 months after pleading guilty to conspiracy to supply cocaine, cannabis and also amphetamine. John Sheen was convicted of money laundering and he was jailed for 6 years after pleading guilty to supplying Class A drugs as well. Detective Constable Darren Wayman from GMP's Organised Crime Unit said, "Today's sentencing reflects the severity of what they was doing and the months of grueling investigative work that we did to convict them. They was definitely high-ranking members of an organised crime gang, and both Caffrey and Sheen were responsible for the importation and distribution of massive amounts of drugs across Greater Manchester." So both of these stories, I feel, were a really good insight into how they tried to get rid of the money and also to convert it into something that you can explain away, because you can't buy houses, cars, vehicles and jewellery without the taxman or the police eventually finding out about it. So I really appreciate you joining me today. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. Follow me online as well at Scarcity Studios on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok and Facebook. And I'll be back again very shortly with some more news. Peace.